So, considering that the majority of white people, that's roughly 75%, that didn't own slaves, I'm thinking about this and I'm saying, you mean to tell me that although their poverty was contributed to wealthy minority slave owners forcing free labors of Africans and their descendants, and which meant that white people were lacking employment, none of them thought it would be a good idea to tell the enslaved people about the Emancipation Proclamation? Not one in Texas. Where were the white allies then? No white man, no white woman or child snuck over to share the news. Not one found it in their hearts and in their souls. All of the white people were bad. Even the poor who didn't even share in all of the same rights of their rich brothers. They were excluded from some of the rights that even the enslaved had already been excluded from. Voting. And here we are today with the same issue when it comes to injustices done to Black people. Why are y'all like this? Letting the wealthy make you believe you're better than the best Black man just so that you can feel good while you're down. While you're down, you can look further down at another man. Lord, just make it make sense. But I know, that is no way to start a show. So I'm going to start over. And I will be right back. Well, hello, and welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, Latoya. As always, it is my pleasure to be present with you on any day that the good Lord allows me to be present. And for you joining me live in YouTube and Facebook, I appreciate you all as well. And those who listen later in the chat, I appreciate you as well. Your presence is my present, so please feel free to engage in the conversation because we got a lot to talk about. You know how your girl do on a Saturday afternoon. It's kind of hot out here. It's pretty warm. And it's officially summer, so that's a good look, right? It's officially summer as of June 21st, so I can stop thinking it's summer. Because, listen, shout out to Vegas because it keeps it 100 in the summertime. They stay real. You know what I'm talking about? Look, even at nighttime, it's up. It's triple digits easily. So it gets really warm out here, but it's beautiful, and which is, great reasons for anyone who's outside just enjoying the weather to be outside enjoying the weather. Me, I like to wait till the sun it's not shining so bright because that heat, it cooks. I'm just saying, good Lord, whatever you cooking out there, I think it's done, okay? But again, thank you all for joining me again on this fine Saturday. I appreciate you so much for it. Where do I start? I'm just grateful that I woke up. Do you guys ever just sit up and think about the miracle of going to bed, going to sleep, dreaming, just being in a subconscious world for a moment, not even realizing that you're sleeping, that you're just in a whole nother dimension almost in your life. And then there's periods where you're sleeping that you kind of realize you're dreaming, but just imagine if you just get stuck there. That's what I imagine passing or transition is like. You just get stuck in a different dimension and you just don't come back to this world, this physical world as we know it. And so I'm always grateful when I open my eyes to a new day. It gives me another opportunity to do better, to make an impression, a positive impression, and build a legacy that hopefully will be influential to those who will be here once I'm long gone and the rest of us. So I'm grateful for that, and it's just a miracle to wake up each day. So shout out to everybody who woke up. Shout out to y'all. So yeah, it is officially summer. And yeah, if you was listening to my rant, I have still been thinking about Juneteenth. We celebrated last weekend and it was lit. We turned up for the Juneteenth weekend and it was beautiful. And I was just full of joy and my spirit was just so calm and at ease, just taking in the energy of my ancestors and just putting myself in that moment, which I can't even really fathom, but just putting myself in that moment of those who didn't know. You think about those who did find out in 1865 of their freedom, but then you think about those who didn't know for over 2.5 years. Um, those people in Texas, Galveston, Texas, that didn't know that they had the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed and they had been free for over 2.5 years. And I can just imagine the look on their faces and the joy in their hearts and their spirits. And even thinking about that, I still even consider the concern they may have had, the concern about what happens now. You've lived hundreds of years in captivity, you bred your kids in this system. Those who came here as free people would probably have a different perspective for those who were born here and this is all they know. And so I just took it all in, and I'm just so grateful because even on that day, having a day off with pay and just knowing that my people survived so that I could have this opportunity was just an awesome, awesome feeling and experience. And I'm still reveling in that. And I always will be, because I know for a fact that all of the things that I benefit from the 1800s and even further back up until now, we think about in other generations past, I benefit from that. So I'm just grateful for all of those who fought for me to have the opportunities that I have today. So yeah, I think about Juneteenth, and I think again how it was just crazy to me, and I was reflecting on the fact that you know it's the same scenario we have here today. When I think about the fact that in the during slavery, the majority of the wealthy people were the minority. So every white person didn't have own slaves. The majority of white men and women and their children were poor and lacked jobs, because a lot of what could be done, what they could make money doing, be it domestic worker, doing engineering, producing, creating patents, and all of the excellence that we did outside of just picking cotton and rearing children and breastfeeding our slave owners' children and cooking and everything that we did, harvesting. Those things they probably could have done too, and they were looked over because they weren't getting paid. And I reflect on that in this time now, because I always tell people that nothing has really changed. There's been some changes, but a lot of what we see today is a mirror of what was going on in the 1800s. It just looks different. Nobody probably wore pink in the 1800s. They weren't probably dyeing their clothes different color. They weren't wearing cornrows, in the way that I'm wearing them. We didn't talk a certain way. It wasn't hip hop. There were a lot of different things so there was evolution, but even today, we still have the same ideologies. We still have the same hatred. We still have the same racism. We still have the same negative things that influence people in this world as it did back then. And for example, the people now that a lot of people are wagging their finger at are, the immigrants, particularly the Mexicans. They're taking our jobs. And I imagine white people saying that back then about Black people, being mad at them, looking at us, as being less than, but also mad at the fact that they felt like they were in a position that they were in, having less was because of our position. Not considering the fact that we didn't want to be enslaved. That's not what we signed up for. We were stolen and forced into labor, and that the wealthy white men were the cause of their poverty. Like, that's the same thing that's happening now. They are the cause of the poverty, not immigrants, not Black people, not the LGBTQ community and whatnot. And I'm just so, it's crazy to me that they're still selling this to people and they buying it. Like, people are still buying this, And as y'all's president said, he loves the poorly educated. So that's what it is, right? Yeah, but then I think about, nobody went over and told those people. 2.5 years went by. Nobody whispered. There was no white allies. Betty Sue didn't whisper to one of our sisters, Betty Jean, that, hey, y'all know that they signed the Emancipation Proclamation, because they knew. Of course they knew. There was a war going on. Of course they knew. And so it was just very unfortunate. And I just think about that and I reflect on that, how we're still in the same position when I think about all the things that happen, the injustices that happen to us as Black people, to our children, to adults. and how people just turn the other cheek. Dogs get more attention than the black man, woman, or child gets in most instances. People are not speaking out against injustices because they look at us as less than, because it makes sense to them to look at us as if we don't matter in comparison to them, instead of being mad at the person who is causing all of this havoc, which is the very small percent. What is the 1%? They say 10%, depending on what income bracket. Any millionaires up. I think billionaires is now rich, because millionaire ain't nothing, right? Instead of looking at them, so that was just my reflection. I just wanted to share that with you all. I know I did say last week that we were going to have an after dark this evening, and that was the plan. But shoot, people out here getting their money. It's a lot going on. A lot of fellowship happening, and I get it. And I want my whole team to be here, at least the majority of us, if we're going to get together and have a conversation, because we all have these unique personalities, and I love having conversations when I can get their different perspectives and share. And we kind of just get a little, it ain't as I don't want to say sophisticated. What word am I looking for? We get a little ratchet. It's after dark. We talk about some things that matter, some things that don't. And I like to have my whole crew here. So we weren't able to work that out yet again, but we're working on it, and I'm looking forward to it. So you guys hold tight. I know you love to hang out with our first caller, Miss Trish, and of course, Mr. Banks. So I'm looking forward to that, you guys. But anyway, what are you guys watching? Have you guys been listening to anything, reading, watching? I read every month. I'm part of a book club, so there's a book. And most of my reading is listening. So I guess you can say I listen every month to books because it's easier for me. But now what I'm learning, even with Audibles, is that I'm not as engaged listening to it because I'm running around doing other things, laundry. Then, of course, you got people you live with that talk to you like they don't see the whole headphones on your head and the Bluetooth. You know what I'm talking about? They literally see you obviously listening to something. You just be walking around with headphones if you weren't, right? But then they start talking to you, asking you questions and stuff, so you got to cohabitate. So I think having a book, a physical book, and sitting down is a little different, and maybe people will respect you more when you're doing your thing. But I'm just being petty. But so I read every month, and I'm trying to catch up with Cat Williams, because didn't he say on the Shay Shay that he was like, I don't know, he's very young. He had read over 3,000 books or something like that. It wasn't 1,000. I'm trying to catch up to him. I ain't got up to the 1,000 yet in books, but I'm trying to catch up. But I did watch, and that was with my sweetie, The Polygamist. Have you guys heard of The Polygamist? I have to sip my tea, do a Whitney Williams for y'all. So it's on Netflix, and I kept seeing posts about it, social media, and people like, oh, The Polygamist. And then I have a group chat, and people were talking about it. And my people, they love a spoiler. They will tell the whole movie. Oh, so I can't believe Joshua killed Sam. Joshua and Sam are not in this series, but I'm just giving an example. And I'm like, what? So, I had to eject from the group chat because I decided to go ahead and watch it. And it was really interesting. It kept my attention. And 22 episodes, one season, 22 episodes. So I'm wondering if they're going to have a season 2, and I'm looking forward to it if they do. Some of the characters won't be present unless they come back as ghosts, or how they do with the remnants and reflections and bringing people back. So that's fine too. But now I'm gonna be honest with you. When I first watched when I first heard of The Polygamist, I thought it was about a polygamous family. I thought it was like a reality TV show, and so that's what I was expecting to see: some man and his wives, and just to see their lifestyle. And I thought it was going to be just ratchet and juicy, but it was actually a production, and so that's what it was. And it stems from a book. The book is the book has the same title, The Polygamist, and it's based on a Zimbabwean novel by Sue Nyathi, if I'm saying that correctly. And so that's what it's about. So I guess if I go find the book, I can see if there's more to the story. But it's quite interesting. It has sex, it has violence, it has adultery, it has lies, it has profanity. It was doing good for me until maybe later on. I would say probably in the teens in the series, maybe the 18th and 19th episode. Then the N-word came up. I always applauded watching African movies, and my family, my cousins were teasing me last night because I told them I watch a lot of like Spanish movies, foreign movies that they speak a different language. Now I'm barely bilingual. I know si habla español poquito. So I use the captions, and sometimes the voices, they can change the people talking will speak in English too. So, but I'm not biased to that because some of the best content is foreign to me. They're very thorough. It's very truthful. It's more realistic to me based on in comparison to American TV sometimes. So I like going to the foreign Spanish stuff and the Nigerian or just the African things. In this case, this is a South African series, the polygamous. So, but anyways, yeah, I've heard somebody also say on they were saying that somebody was saying they didn't realize that the mouths would match up with the conversation because again, it was in English. If you don't know their language, I'm not sure what language it was. I want to say it was Zulu, but I'm not sure they were speaking the Zulu language. But we were listening to it in English, so they had an English voice speaking. So the mouths didn't match. So if you was a karate fan back in the day, you know what it is. Don't front. You know what I'm saying? Don't let that prohibit you from getting or stop you from getting good content. So I thought that was funny, but my family was laughing at me because I do watch a lot of foreign films because I have that luxury. I love having that option. And but yeah, it's like a soap opera kind of. I don't really watch soap operas anymore because they are really over the top. Back in the day, Young and the Restless, General Hospital, and all that. It's just over the top. People die and come back all the time, and it's just enough. I mean, but anyway, so polygamous was really something. And if you're just looking for something to just, pass the time, when you just want to just have useless, entertainment, what do we call that, guilty pleasure. I think you would enjoy watching that. And one of the things they kept saying, but yeah, so I was saying towards the end of the series, they were using the N word. And again, I pride myself on watching movies like, South African movies where they're not using that. And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I love my people for that. But when they do, I'm disappointed. And I know it ended with the A and not the ER, but you don't got to try to Americanize your content. Like, you don't have to do that because it's not necessary. There's so many words in the English language. There's so many words. I mean, think about it. The average person on the continent of Africa speaks an average of 5 languages, not just 2. They speak more than one. So you don't have to, out of all the words, why use that controversial word? We've omitted the F word, the slander for gay people. We've removed the K word, slander for the Jewish community. We don't use any other slander except something that is considered slander to the Black and African American community. So that was the only disappointing thing for me because they had a good run up until that. And they only used it a couple of times, but it's not necessary. It really isn't. And I wish they would just bury it. Y'all know how I feel. My first show ever, I think, was in 2015, 16. That's what I opened up talking about the N word, if y'all don't know me. But they kept saying piss off. And it made me go back to the conversation we've had for 2 Saturdays talking about a Nigerian actor who kind of mocked Black actors here in the United States, saying that they use a slave tone or dialect or whatnot. And then also Drewski kind of pushing back on Nigerians coming in and getting all the Hollywood jobs over Black Americans here. And it kind of just triggered that conversation again because pissed off doesn't sound like something that Black people or African people would say, but it's a way of saying get gone, right? And so I'm like, yeah, why y'all? And, we seem to, throw everybody in one basket sometimes when one Nigerian says something, all the Nigerians, but that's not the case. But just pushing back on that, I just thought about that. That sounds more British. Piss off, ain't that a British term you Black folks using over there trying to mock Black folks? Anyway, here in America, but anyway, it is a British term and it means, I forgot what it means, but piss off. Like, who says that? Who does that? There's another term I'm going to get into. It's funny. The term is funny, but the situation is not. But I want to get into that. But I also went to go see Hell's Kitchen here at the Smith Center. I want to keep saying Symphony, the Smith Center here in Las Vegas, and it was great. I had a good time. Hung out with some of my faves, and we really, really enjoyed it. We sat a little too high up though, so the view wasn't all of that, but the content was great, and it was just good to be amongst people who basically what is the saying? How's the saying go? I go where I'm celebrated, not tolerated. It was good to be around people who celebrate you, when you come around, and I celebrate them. So I encourage you. I don't know if it's over yet. I don't know if yesterday was the last day. I can't be sure, but I'm sure it's like a national thing coming to a state near you. If you're not here in Nevada, or you travel, or you like to get up and go places and go see plays here and there, Alicia Keys' Hell's Kitchen is one to see. I liked it. I think it's a story about her life. I honestly didn't know what it was going to be about, but shout out to that. And shout out to Black Music Month. You guys know we're still celebrating Black Music Month, and we're closing it out. There's going to be a BET Awards show, which is always happens during Black Music Month. acknowledging the great talent of those here in the United States and abroad. Black people are everywhere, right? So mainly it centers Black Americans here, but it's going to be this Sunday hosted by Drewski. So I'm looking forward to that. I kind of like Drewski's style, and I'm interested to see how he hosts a BET Awards show. So I'm looking forward to watching Black Music Month. And for those who may not know, Black Music Month originally established to celebrate and promote African American music. Well, and it was officially recognized by President Jimmy Carter in the 1979, who declared June as Black Music Month. However, the initiatives were driven by the efforts of a Philadelphia soul pioneer, Kenny Gamble, Cleveland radio DJ Ed Wright, and media strategist Diana Williams, who worked together to create Black Music Association. Their goal was not only celebrate Black music, but also to protect, preserve, and promote the business of Black music, ensuring that Black artists and industry stakeholders receive recognition and economic support. You know what it is. We got to toot our own horns, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's room for all of us here. There's a whole lot of money in this. But anyway, so yeah, that's happening Sunday. Are you guys going to be watching it? I'm going to check it out. If not, I'm going to record it or watch the replay. Because I imagine it's going to be a lot of artists I'm not going to be familiar with. I'm going to tell you, I don't know if it's getting old or just being disengaged. Because, if I'm into something, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just, I like it. And if it's not good, then I kind of just walk away from it. And I've kind of been discouraged by music. And so I'm probably missing out on a lot of great artists. But over the years, I've kind of just reverted to or just maintained listening to some of the greats from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, even in the 2000s, early 2000s. But a lot of this new stuff, because I love real voices, real talent. I was just sitting up thinking to myself that it is a God-given gift to have a voice like Jennifer Hudson, Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, and some of Luther Vandross, and there's so many others that I could think of. Peebo Bryson, those are just natural talents. But when I was coming up, you knew the voices and you were just in awe with that talent. You can't create that. You can't go into the lab. You probably can go and, we do stuff to enhance our boobs and our butts and our lips and our skin, but you cannot enhance your voice. You need a actual machine to do that. And then it's not the same because it's actually the actual machine. You can't go in there and do something to your throat. And so that's the era I come from. So I'm kind of just turned away from people who use auto-tune or enhance their voices. I want real talent. I think the real talent needs to be in the front and not people who fit the bill physically, aesthetically, to be able to be in those positions and can be considered great, because I don't consider that to be great. Do you? I'm not mad at you for collecting your money, but this is why I think I won't be hearing a lot of music that I'm familiar with, because I'm detached from the auto-tune and those who really haven't proven to have the talent. But speaking of Black Music Month, during this month, he's not Black, but he has been influential in a lot of Black people's success in the music industry. Clive Davis, if you guys aren't familiar with him, he always wore them little smoky shades that a lot of people wear nowadays. I think that was what he was known for in my eyes. I always looked at people like that as sneaky, but not anymore. But back in the day, that wasn't. So the smoky shade things, I think, comes from the 70s. I won't say the 60s, maybe the 70s, but that was his signature look. I never seen him without the tinted shades. And so Clive Davis is a music mogul. They said he died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 94 on June 22nd. He was born April 4th of 1932. And again, he was he had a lot of influence on a lot of careers. I mean, definitely Whitney Houston, right? Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen. I mean, you think about the Blacks, Jennifer Hudson for sure, from American Idol. She got her big break. Aretha Franklin, Kelly Clarkson, who's not a Black woman, but a lot of people. Janis Joplin, Carlos Santana. Like the list is long, and including Jermaine Dupri. Jermaine Dupri benefited from having access to Clive Davis and his eye and ear for real talent. So Clive Davis had something that I could appreciate. I think those they were called A&R back in the day. I'm not sure what you call them now, but those are the kind of people that went out and sought out real talent. And so I think he did that very well when he picked out the best. He knew how to pick really, really good sweet fruit. But there's a lot of controversy because now Jermaine Dupri is suggesting that Clive Davis should be honored on the BET Awards this Sunday. So they would have to make some edits and some maneuvering to include him. So this is Black Music Month. Clive Davis is not black, even though he has had influence on a lot of careers, made a lot of people millionaires, very successful, talented, and popular globally. What do y'all think about that? Do y'all think that Clive Davis should be honored at the BET Music Awards? I'm curious to know your thoughts. So this Jermaine Dupri actually went on on a platform to to mention he's serious about it, to mention that he definitely wanted BET to recognize Clive Davis. Um, and I'm going to play him saying this. You're going to hear directly from the horse's mouth. I just thought it was interesting. Do I think he should be recognized during Black Music Month for his contributions to the success of many Black talented people come and gone? No, no. Maybe next month they do something. I don't know. Black Music Month, BET Awards. That would be a first. And what do y'all think? Let me know what you think about that. But this is Jermaine Dupri and what he had to say. This is the audio of him.
Yo, I'm just coming in from Steve Stout birthday party. Happy birthday, Steve Stout. I just want to say this real quick. I pray that this weekend, the BET Awards, they go back in. Y'all start tomorrow. Y'all can start tomorrow. I mean, I'm in France, so probably now. But listen, y'all go back in and y'all do something special for Clive Davis, because Clive Davis really put Black music in the forefront. And he really did this different than any other white executive that I've ever seen. Like, he really, I mean, you had to be going to Clive Davis parties to understand what I'm saying. At the Beverly Hills Hotel, when the Grammys was in New York, like before he went to the Hilton, the Beverly Hills Hotel, Clive used to have his party there, and the soul of the party was amazing. And he really understood what Black music meant to the world and what Black music meant to the music business, right? That's why his party was so popular. He was a white man with a party that had all the Black executives, all the Black artists, all the Black music wanted to be at Clive Davis' party. So I just pray that on the BET Awards, Black music entertainment, that we do something big for Clive as we let him rest in peace. Because we lost one of the guys. I'm talking about a guy that was the guy that other guys wanted to be, like the guy, Clive Davis. Rest in peace.
And he did mention that he was one of the white people who I guess was exceptional. In the world that we live in today, where WDI, white, entitled, and incompetent, is on the rise, and DEI is going away. Just including those very talented and excellent, diversified people, excluding them. Should we recognize someone who may not fall under the WGI standard, maybe WEI standard? I mean, that's something to consider. Do y'all want Clive Davis to the BET Awards or not? Let me know how you feel about it. Another thing is, it was a lot of pushback. I thought Michael Jackson felt the way. I was trying to go back and do some research because I thought I heard Michael Jackson say that Clive Davis was the devil. I remember seeing something like that, but I could be wrong. So I was Google searching, and all I could find was Clive Davis basically talking mess about Michael Jackson, saying that he was trying to sabotage his brother Jermaine Jackson's career. So I couldn't find anything specifically quoting Michael Jackson and Clive Davis's relationship or how Michael Jackson felt about him. So I don't really know, but there were other people who had things to say. They had things to say about Clive Davis. There was a clip that came out about Phyllis Hyman that I'll play, so you can just hear her voice and what her perspective was on Clive Davis. But even looking in the comments, like you would see some posts, because the first I learned of it was Jennifer Hudson posted it, a sweet tribute to him. And then, you would see under the comments, because that's where we go, right? We're here for the comments, right? That's where we go, for the comments. So in the comments, it was, some people saying rest in peace, and then others saying, what y'all eating for dinner? So it was mixed reviews, but people had their opinions about him. And so I think there was a lot of controversy about him. But if you guys don't know the great singer Phyllis Hyman, who died by suicide long ago, beautiful voice, jazzy soul, beautiful lady, who left us, I think, too soon. I would have loved to hear something from her now. This is what she had to say in reference to Clive Davis working with him.
Was taught me to never be afraid because I was so terrorized by him. Whether he meant to do it or not, I'll never know. But he sure taught me that if you try to terrorize me again, well, we can't say that on public radio. What I may do to someone who tries to hurt me again in this business, I'm not having it. I should be respected as I respect, and I will not have someone try to ruin my spirit and ruin my career. If Clive Davis, if his plan was to destroy my career, it didn't work. It was taught.
So she basically said he taught her not to be afraid. He taught her how to be fearless. So she had to grow some hair on her chest, dealing with him in whatever way that was. And that was just a snippet of the interview. I didn't listen to the entire thing. When I get some time, I'll go back and sit and listen and learn more about him. But I just remember in the back of my mind hearing not just negative things. There were some positive things about him, right? The positive things is just because he put very talented people. I listen. I'm gonna give kudos what kudos is due. He definitely had an ear for talent, but as far as the business world, it's a whole nother beast, right? And so, she said he taught her not to be afraid, and that she would never be fearful again because of her experience with him. So that was Phyllis Hyman, and that was her take on an interview that was done in the '90s. Then we also know that people were side eyeing him when Whitney Houston passed back in 2012, on February 11th, actually, when she passed away, when he decided to proceed with an annual pre-Grammy gala. And back then, I don't know if it's still a big deal now. It probably is. I don't even know if he would still be hosting them or have been hosting them, or his name is behind it. And if it is still a thing, what happens now that he's gone, or I don't know. But I remember, when she passed, a lot of people were side eyeing him for continuing with the Grammy gala. Shortly after her death, it was just hours after Whitney Houston was found dead in her suite at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. He decided to continue on with it. And again, he believed it was something Whitney herself would have wanted, and her family had asked him to carry on. This is according to him. He said that Clive met with Houston's family. He said, including her daughter Bobby Christina, who we know passed away as well, in his hotel suite. Shortly after the news, he told them they could stay as long as they needed, then left to take care of the guests downstairs. This was according to an article, a snippet from a news break. But at the end of the event, he openly expressed his devastation, calling Houston so full of life and a beautiful person and a talented beyond compare, and stated that she would have wanted the music to go on. So some people were like, oh yeah, he's just money hungry, he's just about the fame and things of that nature. But he did emphasize that the party was a tribute to her, not a celebration that ignored her death. He said her family had requested the event continue, and he was committed to honoring her legacy. Yeah, so over a decade later or longer, the sources close to him said that he never regretted the decision. Yeah, it's been, oh, definitely. Yeah, never regretted the decision, believing it was the right choice to keep the music going in her memory. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I know many of us have lost loved ones, and it's always, death is like the interruption of everything. Even if someone's passing, it's still sudden, it's still abrupt, it is still the interruption of everything. So all the plans that you may have had get halted, and they are not included in anything going forward. And how do you deal with that? Do you take the time to mourn, or do you proceed with the day? I know some people, it go to work. I don't know how you do that. But just the day of, hours later, like, how do you deal with that? And so people were side eyeing him on that, and I get it. But goodness, speaking of Whitney Houston, it made me think of Oprah Winfrey. She's trending in the news now. People love to hate Oprah Winfrey. Growing up, I had a level of respect for Oprah because she was one of the first Black women I see be successful in a journalism career. And in my mind, I always thought that I would be an author or on some level of journalism. And so to see someone who looked like me, who came from humble beginnings, her story of abuse and just being, just coming from humble beginnings and all of the things she struggled with growing up, to emerge as a very successful mogul in a journalism career. And to me, and her show was great. I look forward to seeing the Oprah Winfrey show. The topics were great. I don't know. I didn't judge her as much as I saw a lot of other people, especially in the black community, because I never really heard much about white people, and that goes to say a lot, right? Because she built a success. She helped to build success of some of the people today that are MAGA, like what's his name, who had a talk show, the little dude with the cul-de-sac, white dude with the cul-de-sac, who always walks off with his wife on his talk show. I don't even know if it's still going, but anyways, him and then the doctor. I can't remember his name either because they're non-factors. But these are people who I used to kind of have a level of respect for and interest in, and then come to find out they were not like us. And so she was the reason why they're so successful today. And so I side eye that. But anyways, as we talk about Whitney and Clive Davis and the BET Awards and this Black Music Month, recognizing that. She had something to say about Whitney. She did an interview. I don't know exactly what date it took place because a lot of times people will dig up old stuff, just because that's what they want to do. Because in the time we live in now, we're able to do that with the social media platform. So people will dig up old stuff and make it current. But they said it was on a Tuesday show. So I'm saying it was in the month of June that she was at the Cannes Lions conference in France. Again, this is Oprah Winfrey. She claimed Whitney Houston was back on drugs during her two-part appearance on the Oprah Winfrey Show back in 2009, and during which she spoke about being clean after years of substance abuse and two spells in rehab. So I don't know why the conversation took effect, except once I started to look at the context of it, I kind of understand what led up to her saying that. But she's getting a lot of pushback. I mean, a lot of people are pissed off about it. And I feel a way too, because I don't think it's her place to make an assumption about somebody, or even if that's what she really felt, what would be the point of saying that she was on drugs? So the story goes on to say that Oprah was saying that Whitney fell off the stage, and she later begged her audience. Oprah Winfrey begged her audience not to share any photos of the incident and to spare the singer. So what is this? Decades later, she decided this was a good time to discuss this and talk about a woman who is not here to defend herself. And what was the importance of this? I don't really know, except that, it again, listening further, it kind of was more directed to a self-fulfilling talk more so than to down Whitney, but she used Whitney to build herself up, or to talk about her significance and her influence, is how I took it after just further looking at it. She said, "I knew that if the story got out, she would be destroyed." And she said, even though the audience was there and the audience had cameras, I begged them not to put pictures on because it would ruin her life, and that they did not. She said they didn't. They respected her wishes, and we never heard about this until now. Oprah Winfrey, I'm just saying.com. Your audience had enough respect for you and Whitney Houston, and just the whole incident, whatever it may have been, to not say anything. So why did you feel it was important to say anything now? I'm not sure. But she said that would not happen today. She said, I can tell you that. And so, that she's reflecting on how basically in that time, everybody didn't have camera phones and all of that too. Because so of course, yeah, it would be hard for that not to happen today. But yeah, she said she begged them not to post any pictures because it would ruin her life, and they did not. If you guys aren't familiar with Stacey Patton, she's the author of Spare the Child. I have the book Spare the Kids. It's by Whooping Children Won't Save Black America. Um, I love the way she writes. I respect her perspective. Not that I can say I agree 100% on everything she has to say, but she come with it when she come with it. So I would encourage you guys, if you're not following her on Facebook or follow her Substack, if you want to get her perspective on current affairs, she has one. But she has something to say about Oprah Winfrey coming out recently, speaking on Whitney Houston and her possibly going back into drugs. She said, Winfrey pointed to this amazing story as an example of how she had such trust from her audience, though she added, that would not happen today. She said, WTF. She said Oprah really told a story about a famous beloved black woman collapsing in public during addiction. She said, and somehow made the moral of the story look, my audience loved me so much, they kept my secrets. Only Oprah, she said, could turn someone else's public collapse into a heartwarming story about her own influence. And basically, Oprah's power becomes the star of the story. That was my takeaway too. That was my takeaway too. She was like a look at me situation, but she used someone else's pain or incident, even if she wasn't on drugs. She did collapse off the stage. She did fall off the stage. I wonder if she sued them. I bet she didn't. But you can get some money. You trip on somebody's stage, that shouldn't have happened. Somebody should have. There was no way for that she should have tripped on that stage. So that's interesting, right? But that was my perspective too after listening to it. Like, why would you bring it up after mentioning the fact that your audience respected you up until now, 2026? We did not know this story. And then you decided it was a good time to share that story. Why did you do that? And as Stacey Patton highlighted, the reason was to talk about how much she's loved and respected in her in her career, right? So that was my takeaway too. But her bodyguard spoke as well, and he had a different perspective on what happened. He was president at the time, so he told a story, and TMZ interviewed him. And I'll play what her bodyguard had to say.
Greg, you were there the day that Whitney Houston fell off the stage during the sound check at Oprah's show. Take us back to that day. What happened?
I don't know whether it was a sound check or they was actually doing I can't remember exactly when she fell. But she was coming toward the front of the stage, and it's a drop off, and it's sort of like a dark spot there. So when she got to the edge, I think somebody told her, "What? Be careful, watch it." And then she went down. But so we got to her, but she got up. Matter of fact, she made fun about it.
What did she say when she was making fun about it?
She was just laughing. She said, "I didn't see that." She said, "I didn't even see that." I said, "That's obvious. You didn't see it."
Oprah had suggested that she had relapsed and the fall was due to her being high. Do you think that was the case?
No, I think the case was she didn't really know that stage. And when she walked out there, she stepped off of it, stepped off the end onto the next level. That was the case. I don't know. I guess I would do the same thing if I didn't, because it's sort of dark right there where she stepped off at. From her point of view, she might have thought that she was. I'm not downing nobody. I'm just saying that she wasn't. I would know.
Do you think Oprah should apologize to Whitney's fans and to her family?
Only if she feels that way. Don't do it because somebody else. Be truthful about it.
I like that.
You got to be truthful about it. Don't switch up or apologize if you don't really mean it. That's the way I stand on it. If you don't really mean it, go on with it. Because you know what? Whitney's not here to rebuttal. She's not here. So you never hear her telling me being on the interviews and talking to people too much. Because she's not here to back up what I say, or she's not here to rebuttal what I say. So why talk about it?
Yeah.
Just like that right there. Now, they say that she waited so many years before she said it. Well, why didn't you say it then? She's dead. She's gone. My sister gone.
Yeah.
So she can't say, "No, I know that. No, I wasn't." You might think I was, but I was not. She can't say that. That's my point.
I think you made a good point, and I love the fact. That's how you can always tell when you're talking to a real one, because they asked him, "Do you think that Oprah should apologize?" He said, "Not unless she means it." A lot of people say they want a public apology. We think about even with slavery, how we want America to come out and publicly apologize. We want certain people to publicly come out and apologize. We want people in our lives to come directly to us and apologize for things. But do you just want to hear them say I'm sorry, or do you want them to mean it? Like, to me, that's the most important thing, that you acknowledge what you did or how it made that person feel, and you accept your responsibility and accountability for it. But if you feel like that was the appropriate thing to say and do, and that you didn't do anything wrong, stand on it, stand on business. you know that doesn't change anything, because a true apology can humble that person, and it could cause you to have a level of forgiveness for that person, or even reconciliation, and you can move forward from that. But if a person isn't truly sorry, why do we want them to apologize? So I love when he said, no, I don't want her to apologize unless she means it, not to come out because for PR, or because she's losing followers or losing money and things of that nature, because that happens a lot. People just come out and say something verbally just to please other people, but that's not really that's not really what they mean. In other words, that's not really what they mean. So I don't want anybody apologizing to me if they don't really mean it. For some people that really mean it, it's hard to get an apology from them, because sometimes it's just hard to say you're sorry. Just like with some people, it's hard to say I love you. But a lot of people just want to apologize because they don't want you to feel that they're sorry, whether they're sorry or not. So it can go either way. But yeah, it could go either way. But on the topic of Clive Davis, what do you? I mean, if we gotta get a white guy on BET, we want to make a white history debut for the BET Awards. That'd be the first time we would recognize a white person in that spotlight, which I don't think we should do again for the BET Awards. Why not it be Jimmy Carter, right? The former president. I mean, he did some very influential things. He was a good guy in my eyes. When I think about his history, I can't see anything that would make me think that he wasn't for the people, for Black people in general. And Jimmy Carter did a lot of great things that benefited not just Black people, but humanity. I remember the story how he put the solar panels, because he was into clean energy and conserving energy, and protecting God's land and the people who existed in it. And he put solar panels on the White House. Years later, when Reagan became president in 1986, he removed them. Just dumb shit. You got to call a thing, but he removed them. But, simple stuff like that. Or he helps eradicate the worm disease in Africa. It's still around, but it's not as bad as it was, because he went over there and brought, an infrastructure for clean water and filtration. He brought medicine to the continent. And he reversed the majority rule by minority whites. So if you think about apartheid, or apartheid is how they say it on the continent, these white people's over there running stuff too, as a minority though. And they still are, but he did some positive things to try to protect the people. And I think that should be recognized. I don't know about Clive Davis getting that recognition, if we got to do it, if that's what we want to do. But nah, I don't know. I just, no, it's a no for me. And you guys can let me know what you think, especially in the comments. If you're listening later, please share your thoughts. So again, we talked about his Black Music or Awareness Month. It's also still Men's Mental Health Month. So we're closing out on that. One of the interesting things about Men's Mental Health Month, if I have that correct, let me just check, because there's been so many different ones. We've had a lot of mental health awareness recognition for the months on the calendar for 12 months. So in January, we had Mental Wellness Month. In May, we had Mental Health Awareness. In June, which is a month we're in now, closing out, was Men's Health Month. So this is Men's Health Month. Again, it's not mental health, but it is men's health, but mental health should be also included in that, right? Then in November, there's, again, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And there's also, even in February, there's Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. I think it's important, and it's obviously something that is crucial because it keeps getting throughout the calendar, throughout the 12 months. Um, we're talking about health and mental health, and I think it's important that we reflect on that, especially if we want to focus particularly on men's health. I want to encourage the men, especially in your 40s, to go and get physicals. Physicals include, they're gonna go hit your knee. You know how you did in football, something like that. But they do blood work too. When you went, for sports, they did the little knee check, and they check all your vitals. But they also do blood work to see where you are. What your PSA is. If you need to know those levels because that could determine if you might be susceptible to prostate cancer. They check to see if you fall under being pre-diabetic or having diabetes. They check your blood pressure. They check for to see if you're susceptible to a stroke. They do all kind of things to get you to see where you're at, and so you can kind of get ahead of those things. Or if you're already in the thick of it, try to reverse it, or at least get it under control. And I think having these months to highlight that is just a reminder how important you are to us as men, because you go through life working hard and being providers and being whatever you are to us, but you're no good to us if you're not healthy. And some things you can't prevent, but you can also it's about the quality of life. You want to live. And when it's time to go, it's time to go. I get it because I'm listening to the men in my head. Well, we go. But the reality is, the quality of life is the most important thing. So if you're gonna go, go out with a bang. You know what I'm saying? Go out, in good health, or at least not suffering unnecessarily. So I encourage those of us who have loved ones, the men that we love in our lives, go get a physical. Just start by getting the physical. And if you go to that doctor and immediately they want to put you on medication, or they don't seem to answer all the questions, or you're not getting the information you think you need, go to another doctor, because all doctors are not created equal. I've had that experience. Personally, having my sweetie go to a doctor who was mad about some conditions being reversed, just by eating right and just doing better. They wanted, him to just put him on medication. I'm like, we don't do that over here, son. We get well over here. You know what I'm saying? We do natural stuff. And so if that works, then it works. If it doesn't, then you may need medication. But I think that doctors should celebrate you trying to do the right thing. And I think a lot of doctors are biased towards Black people for whatever reasons those may be. They don't introduce certain things, healthy lifestyles to us as far as eating, cutting out the pork, cutting out sodium, better ways to eat. Instead of eating starches every day, like mashed potatoes, do mashed cauliflower. You can spice up, it's because remember, the food that we eat is about flavor. Black people, we about the flavor. Yes, we love our meats, we love whatever we love, but we are there for the flavor. We are here for the flavor. You can't just bring potato and mayonnaise and say this potato salad unless you're from a different culture. You got to put that flavor in. You got to put your soul and your love in it, and that's what makes it good. So you can take something like a cauliflower, mash it up, and give it those ingredients that are going to be flavorful, so you can get what you're looking for when you eat. Right? We just want things to taste good, and then you can still live good, and you don't necessarily have to abandon all of the things you enjoy. You see the vegans, mimicking meats and things of that nature, and to some degree that's good too. But then I will say that some of the foods that vegans do are processed too. And if you have a good doctor, they're going to encourage you not to eat processed foods, a lot of processed foods, because processed foods include a lot of sodium, a lot of preservatives a lot of times. But if you're doing it yourself, then you know what you're putting into it, then it's not so bad, right? But shout out to men's, again, it's Men's Health Month. So I want to just do that as well. And I want to recognize LGBTQ month, just because it is LGBTQ month. And, most of us, or many of us, may know people who fall under that umbrella, and we love them dearly, and we celebrate them in all of their goodness. And we want them to know that they're appreciated in a world that will look at them sideways, or condemn them, or tell them they're going to hell because of whatever, in every which way they live. But one of the things I wanted to just highlight, and I talked about this guy, I want to say his name is Christian. I'm trying to think of his last name again, but he's a Black man who comes on. I was introduced to him by the Clay Kane show. I'm going to try to pull it up on YouTube. If not, I'll play the audio. But he talks a lot about what I would say Mr. Joe Madison, the late great Mr. Joe Madison, used to be on Urban View Radio. I miss him so much. every morning, 4 hours, 5 days a week, I dedicated my time and my ears to hearing him. I felt like I sat at the feet of a wise man, and I got so much of the knowledge and information that I have and share with you today by listening to him. But he would call certain people cafeteria Christians because people pick and choose what they were going to condemn. Like you have people walking around here eating a lot of pork, eating high, things that literally are in the Bible that you shouldn't be ingesting, wagging their finger at someone who loves someone of the same sex, wagging their finger at someone who does some other things that may be in the Bible, but particularly it's not specific to homosexuality. But I wanted to play this clip again. I'm going to try to share it. I'm going to do YouTube, and if YouTube doesn't work again, I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm going to do a just the audio so you can at least hear it, what he has to say. But he was on the Clay Kane show, and a caller called in and had some things to say as they were talking about LGBTQ people. Keep in mind that Clay Kane is a openly gay man and Christian. The guy who is speaking considers himself, he says he's a pastor and a Christian. He is a heterosexual married man if he's still married. So that's what that is. But the lady called in and she had some things to say about homosexuality. So I'm going to try to get that going. And again, if I can't get it going on my audio, I will play it. It's already freezing up. So I will play it. If I can't get it going on the video, I'll go ahead and do the audio. So let's see what we can get going here. Because the struggle is real. I don't know what it's sharing. Let me just see. All righty. So we're sharing our screen. It says it cannot share it. Let's try it again. So let me just try to get it. Go ahead and share it. Yeah, this is something that happens when I, keep in mind I am the producer, so I do it all here while engaging you all. So just work with a sister. Let's see if we can get it going. And okay, it's up.
First time caller?
Yeah. Hey.
Hi.
It's Dana from North Carolina. Hi Clay. Hi Christian. I definitely don't. Christian, this is for you. Are you saying that we're to embrace and celebrate that behavior?
Behavior.
What behavior are you talking about?
Behavior, LGBTQ behavior. Are you saying that we're to embrace and celebrate with them? That's my.
It's an aspect of their identity. First of all, your sexuality is an expression of your humanity, and we live in a culture and in a religion that to separate people from their identity all the time. And you're black, and Christianity had to separate you from your blackness. Thing we should embrace, celebrate.
Here's what comes off a bowl of strawberries when you drop this device in the water. These berries are fresh from the store and already rinsed under the tap, but within 10 minutes, the water changes color. What floats to the surface will change how you feed your family. My friend works in food safety testing. Last month, she watched me rinse strawberries under the tap.
So what I'll do instead is I'll do the audio because obviously I'm getting cut in with the what do you call it, the commercials and it's freezing up. So I'll do the audio and just wait for my screen to come up. So here is the audio of, again, it's Christian A. Smith on an interview on the Clay Kane show when a caller called in condemning the gay community, saying it was a lifestyle. And this is what I'll start it over. So here we go.
And this is for you. Are you saying that we're to embrace and celebrate that behavior?
Behavior. What behavior are you talking about?
Behaviors. LGBTQ is a behavior. Are you saying that we're to embrace and celebrate with them?
It's an aspect of their identity, first of all. So we first have to name it as an aspect of their identity. Your sexuality is an expression of your humanity. And we live in a culture and in a religion that tries to separate people from components of their identity all the time. So yes, I'm saying we should embrace.
Why do you think somebody's sexual orientation is a behavior?
Because the Bible says it. And the Bible
No, it
says
doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
And yes, it does. Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. Love is not a behavior. A relationship is not a behavior. So what you're doing is you're trying to reduce LGBT folks, I guess, to sex. And so you're not really seeing their humanity. So I'm pushing you a little bit to go beyond seeing LGBT folks just through the lens of sex. And if you can't see that, then I reject the notion of even your question. You just say, it's a behavior, like a badass kid or a good kid. It's not a behavior. And if you don't see that, then we're at an impasse.
Yeah.
But final comment.
Can I get a turn to talk here? You just said you did not write the Bible. God did. You're
God
just
didn't
giving the word of what he said. He
Right.
says homosexuality is sin. Therefore, I will not celebrate with the gay community.
Then
I
don't.
will not. And I'm not no hate for them.
Then don't.
I'm not.
Then
I'm
don't.
not
Nah,
upset, but I might like
don't try to defend it. Nah, just don't. Just stand on what you said. Stand on your bigotry. Use the Bible to cover it up all you want. Blame it on the God that you say wrote the Bible because you obviously don't understand the history of how the Bible came to be. Look, if you want to be a bigot, just be one. You ain't got to do all of that. You don't need a Bible verse to justify bigotry. Just be one and stand on it. Stop blaming the Bible and blaming God because you want to be a bigot. Just be one. You could have just silently disagreed and went on about your business. You gonna call into the same gender-loving man's show and condemn his humanity? That's how you chose to live out your faith? That's the stuff Jesus called out. That's why Jesus had so much smoke for the Pharisees. That right there.
Father Christian, when people are just existing in their humanity, people believe that's being forced on them.
Yeah. You coming on here to condemn somebody's humanity to their face on their show? It's disrespectful, it's rude, it's hateful. It is the worst possible representation of Christ you could possibly be.
And this is for you. Are you saying that we're to embrace and celebrate?
So yeah, and I just thought that was an interesting. I thought that was an interesting conversation. I just wanted to share that with you all on the heels of closing out the LGBTQIA month as well, recognizing those who live differently. And it's just you could hear the inflection in her voice and how mad she felt about it, like she wasn't going to celebrate with these people. And again, many of us have people that we know and love that have live differently. They love differently than we. And are we just going to turn our backs on them? She just literally just said she's not celebrating, and that because the Bible said this, and we can get into a whole Bible conversation. One day I definitely want to sit down with people who are true Christians and have a conversation and pick apart some of the subject matters in the Bible. Because she said God wrote the Bible, and he's no, God didn't write the Bible for sure. And just so many things that people live under because of their beliefs, the things that they were taught to believe, not that they've read it and they understand it and what it means. What would Jesus do? Would Jesus turn his back? Would Jesus not celebrate those who love someone who looked just like them? Would Jesus turn his back on those people? From the stories that I've read, the answer is no. I'm more concerned about people who cause harm to others, for people who participate in pedophilia, who rape, who murder, who cause harm to others. And in the instance that they may cause harm to themselves, that would fall in the lines of our diets for one, the way that we think and the way that we experience life. But I think we miss out on a lot when we just exclude people and be bigots. So again, you can go to YouTube and listen to that. Again, Christian A. Smith. I like the way he gives a different perspective on how we should be looking at things. Not to I don't feel like he's like trying to promote supporting something. If you don't, he said it clearly. If you don't agree with it, then don't. It's okay. It's just the same thing when we talk about abortion. People say they don't support it and they don't believe in it. Don't have an abortion. And again, the same thing when it comes to being gay. If you think that's not something you want to do, then don't do it. Okay, it's just that simple. But to hate someone and to condemn them or to oppress them and cause harm to them because of their life, their live life, I don't think that's fair. But speaking of pastors, moving on, and this is one I kind of had a cackle. It was not a funny story, but when I kind of give you why I had a cackle about it, you'll understand. But anyway, here in Nevada, there was a pastor who died by suicide recently. He was just apprehended, after an investigation of they are investigating that he murdered his wife. So his name is David Vandermeer. He's 49-year-old. He's a former Las Vegas youth pastor. He died by suicide before appearing in court on June 25th, 2026, in connection with the 2006 death of his first wife, Bernadette. So here's the background. Vandermeer was arrested in June 2026 on a Utah warrant. Again, this happened in 2006, but it was a Utah warrant for murder and insurance fraud related to Bernadette's death, his first wife. She fell to her death at an Angel's Landing in Zion National Park on August 22nd, 2006, during an anniversary hike. At the time, Vandermeer told investigators she slipped while posing for a photo, but a 2022 tip from a former youth group member led to a reopened investigation. The tip alleged that Vandermeer had groomed and been in a sexual relationship with a teenage girl from his ministry, and that he told her the only way they could be together was if Bernadette was not alive. So court records show he had raised her life insurance, his first wife's life insurance policy, to over $550,000 each in 2005, and collected more than $567,000 in benefits, allegedly using the money for lavish living trips. Now, the reason why I said I had a cackle, and we, on the heels of talking about pastors, is because I thought about a white phrase. First of all, I thought about a white phrase that white people use, and then I thought about all of the Dateline and all of the ID, the shows where the spouses are killing each other, right? It's always, conspiracy. And this is one of the ways in which white men in particular would take the life of their significant other, even on dates, someone they're dating, is the term "go take a hike." So I was just thinking, is that what they really mean when they say that? Because, I talked about piss off, right? I said, even though there was a Nigerian using it, or it was a Zulu term, they were telling somebody to piss off in the movie The Polygamist. That is a British term. And go take a hike is something white people say. You'll never hear a black person say, go take a hike. Because what does that even mean? Like, we do hike as black people, but it's not like a big thing. Like, we do hike, like, we swim, we do all those things. But we would never tell somebody, go take a hike. And so I said, oh, so they really be serious when they say go take a hike. They mean, they off yourself. And that's how I interpret it. So that's just my little cackle. And again, rest in peace to the woman who lost her life, who may allegedly have been murdered. And so there's lots of stories like this. And I tried to do the research to determine how common this is. And it is quite common. There's no specific statistics on white women dying after taking a hike, with their significant other. But it says that while we can state that white women have relatively high fall mortality rates while taking a hike, especially among older adults, they say over 65. There is no official national statistic for white women who fall from cliffs. But again, white women have the highest mortality rate of falling off cliffs. And a white term is go take a hike. And that's just my moments that I'm sharing with you, those in my head. I was thinking, okay, all right. Anyway, I also want to mention this because I think it's very important for us to know and understand what's happening in our world. A lot of people think that what's really happening isn't really happening. This current administration is working diligently to remove any historical facts that pertain to all of the atrocities that their forefathers have committed amongst us. That have caused us to be where we are today. And they're trying to revert back to that. They say it clear as day in our face. You can say it's hiding in plain sight, but I don't even think they're hiding it. When we talk about the MAGA stands for Make America Great Again. That was a slogan that they stand on and live by. And they're doing everything they can to make America what they want it to be since the time that they came over and stole it from the Native Americans here. I think that was in the 1700s when it physically won, got their way. And then, we'll talk about the 4th of July before we close out. But anyway, there's a Texas federal judge sentenced people to 30 to 100 years for protesting. Okay. So for those of us who think, a lot of us are just being, what do we call it, hyperbolic. A lot of us who think that, this administration is equal to the administration, they're the same, the two wings of the same bird, that they're no different. We wouldn't be having this problem right now where people who were peacefully protesting, where no one died, are getting 30 to 100 years for protesting. But this is a true story, and this is a recent story under this current administration. And I say this to say that's why Black women are arresting. That's why you don't see us out here in these streets, because we know what's going on. We tried to press that to people prior to 2024 election, that this is going to be an attack. You think it's just going to be an attack on immigrants? You think it's just going to be an attack on the LGBTQIA community? You think it's just going to be an attack on Black people? All of that is true, but everyone falls under that umbrella if you are not a rich, wealthy white man, okay? History teaches us that nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. I've highlighted and bullet pointed several instances where that has been the situation since the inception of whatever we call this now, with these people coming over here and taking over land. But this is a decade. They have decade-long prison sentences, okay, for a group of Texas activists convicted of terrorism and other charges in connection to a 4th of July protest last year, okay? 4th of July protest last year. 8 people who participated in a protest at the Prairie Land ICE detention facility, people speaking up for those who are being unjustly targeted by ICE, and that's just my sidebar, but, this was a Prairie Land ICE detention facility in Alvarado, Texas, were sentenced on Tuesday to between 50 and 100 years in prison. A 9th person, his name is Daniel Sanchez Estrada, the husband of one of the demonstrators, did not participate in the protest, but was sentenced to 30 years in prison after he was convicted of moving boxes containing left-wing signs and other materials after a prison phone call from his wife. So Rashida Tlaib tapped in on this. This is a representative here in the United States in the House, Rashida Tlaib. She said these sentences are a travesty and totally unjustified, but that's the point. America hates the fascist Trump regime, so the only way they can try to cling to power is brute force. The representative Rashida Tlaib continued. Again, she's a Democrat representative from Michigan. This is where she posted on X, said, more bullshit, terrorism charges like these are coming. Okay, they're coming. And if you guys don't think this is bizarre, I mean, we talk about Carmelo Anthony getting 35 years for what we perceive to be a self-defense incident, or at least his behavior doesn't warrant 35 years. They're packing it on for people who are not part of the MAGA community. So I'm going to read further. The prosecution was closely watched because the prosecution is closely watching this, I should say, because this is the first case to go to trial after the Trump administration vowed to crack down on Antifa. And I'm putting Antifa in quotes because Antifa is not a real thing. It's not an organization, but a constellation of left-wing ideology. So they just named something, they just called it something and told their followers Antifa is the devil, Antifa is a terrorist, and anybody that we call Antifa, please believe us, and we have every right to do whatever we want to do to them because they're Antifa, okay? Prosecutors claim that demonstrators were part of an Antifa and filed a broad terrorism charge against them, allowing the Trump administration to claim they had successfully convicted Antifa terrorists. The actual terrorism charge the government got a conviction on, however, is not connected to the ideology. Okay, so they're calling them Antifa, but they're not even connecting their actions to what they consider Antifa to be. Of the other 7 defendants, 5 of them received 50-year prison sentences. That includes 2 people who were not involved in the planning of the protest, that arrived late and left when guards asked them to. Okay. Unlike Trump's father, who was arrested in New York outside of Madison Square Garden because he would not leave after marching with the Ku Klux Klan after being told to do so. Okay. All right. Sanchez, Estrada's wife, Marciela Udeda, I could be mispronouncing that, was sentenced to 70 years in prison. Are y'all hearing these numbers though? Are y'all hearing these numbers? Nobody died. In prison. Benjamin Song, the lone person who fired at police, at a police officer and hit him, was sentenced to 100 years. I did say nobody died, but he fired at a police officer, since 100 years in prison. All are likely to pursue an appeal. They're all likely to pursue an appeal on their prison convictions. Okay. So again, Antifa is not a real organization. It was made up to classify any person who exhibits these ideologies to this group. And what are these ideologies of Antifa? It is short for anti-fascist. It is a loosely organized network of activists and local groups united primarily by opposition to fascism, racism, white supremacy, and other far-right ideologies. It is not a formal organization with centralized leadership. So they can't get a leader, they can't get an organization. I can't say, hey, I'm going to a Antifa meeting low key at the library. They don't even have they can't connect anybody to it. It's just, if you're standing out protesting and you're against what's happening with this current administration, they're going to put that label on you, is what I'm reading. Okay, so it's not a formal organization with a centralized leadership. Instead, it consists of autonomous cells and individuals who coordinate actions independently. So you just doing you, but now you didn't just got grouped into a group, okay? Often using social media or encrypted communication platforms. How do you know? You can't even point them out. Y'all, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. The movement is highly decentralized. Again, they keep saying it's decentralized because they just made up something and now they can just put anybody under that umbrella that they want, okay? And it's meaning there is no single, when they say decentralized, it means there's no single government body or official membership. So how do you put somebody in it if they're not in it? You can't say they're in it because there's no membership to be a part of. How do you say they're a part of something and get them 70 years, 30 years, 50 years? Meanwhile, the same president on day 1 of his presidency pardoned over 1,500 people who were insurrectionists. Okay, remember the January 6th insurrection when they protested against the re-election of, or was it a re-election? No, because he was vice president before. Election of Joe Biden. Was this the second? I can't even remember now. Time is just, anyway, Joe Biden became president and they went to the Capitol and protested. They climbed up wall looking like roaches. They shitted on people's desks. They were looking for Nancy, what's her name? I can't think of it now, but she's one of the Senate leaders. They went looking for top leaders in the House, the Senate and the Democrat, and they were trying to take them out. Over 100 police officers were injured. Over 140 police officers injured. We know that some even died by suicide later because of the incident. They did not allow they did not allow the reserve or military to come in and subdue these people. A lot happened. They were pepper spraying the police officers. They were hitting them with flag poles, all of this. And this man not only told them to stand down and stand by, because I was watching the news when this happened. I went and put on all black and, sat by my girlfriend, me and my girlfriend, when all of this was happening. And because I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought the police couldn't get control of things. What's to say that these people aren't going to be up and down my street in a minute? You know what I'm saying? Like it seemed like it was a free for all. But anyways, he pardoned these people and called them peaceful protesters. Like, don't believe your lying eyes. Like, this is the people, this is the kind of stuff that frustrates people like me who hear people say that they don't vote, they're not participating in a democratic system, that they even support this person and this administration. Okay. Meanwhile, you're giving people who peacefully protested against ICE agents being able to just kick in your door, wave in the 404, and all you heard was "Papa, don't hit me no more," legally because of their president. Okay. That's what we're getting right now. And so, yeah, this is what we're dealing with. So in essence, we know why he pardoned him on his first day. He didn't reduce the cost of gas, the cost of eggs, the cost of house to house living. He didn't increase wages so that people can afford the cost of living. He didn't adjust child care, reduce that, or offer subsidies. He did the total opposite. But on day one, he released over 1,500 of these people who were arrested for being insurrectionists. And like I said, the list is long of things that they did. But here we are with people currently, as in this month, that are sitting in prison for 70, 50, 30 years because they peacefully protested. Nobody died, nobody got hurt, nobody got injured. They were just protesting against this regime, protesting against fascism, and he just tagged a name onto it, and it's very frustrating. But we know that he is setting up these people that he's releasing and giving favoritism to form his own militia. That's what he's doing. And the crazy part is, even less than a year later, after pardoning all of these people, at least 40, I know the list is longer now. And I mean, these are some of these crimes they committed include rape, killing. I mean, the list is long of the atrocities that they've committed since having being reoffenders. So at least 40, that was a year after, because that was 2025, this was reported. We're in 2026 now. At least 40 have been reoffended in less than 1 year, okay? After being told to stand down and stand by, being pardoned and all of that. So, yeah, and now, as we know, even recently, he's trying to get reparations for him. He wants taxpayers to reimburse them for their suffering, their pain and suffering after causing an insurrection and having to be incarcerated and have a felony on them. Mind you, the current president has, many felonies, many felonies. Okay, so this is wild. This is wild. And if you guys don't know, right now we're trying to get a Fair Housing Act bill passed. But prior to that, this was a conversation he had in 2020, just to give you an idea again of who this man is, y'all's president. At a Save America rally on the Eclipse in Washington, D.C., y'all's president repeated false claims that the 2020 election had been stolen and urged his supporters to take action. He told the crowd they should march to the Capitol to peacefully and patriotically make their voices be heard, while also saying, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And he framed the audience as fighters, warning that if you don't fight like hell, you're going to have a country. You're not going to have a country anymore. Yeah. And so, that's what he told them. But he's also mentioned bloodshed and things of that nature. Okay. On the heels of that, y'all's president currently is withholding getting the Housing Act bill passed until he can get the SAVE Act bill passed, which already passed the Congress, and the Senate is like, nah, son. Finally, somebody's growing some. I don't know. Maybe it's something in there that doesn't work with them. But anyways, this is current as well, and it's important to know because for those who say voting doesn't matter and it doesn't, well, these people are working overtime to make sure that they can rig elections. They don't want you to vote because if the majority of people do vote, Republicans don't win. That's the reality of it. You've heard the Google syndrome. I don't want everybody to vote. When everybody votes, Republicans lose, and that's the Southern strategy. So he's part of that Southern strategy, and he canceled a planned signing of a bipartisan housing affordability bill on Wednesday, threatening to withhold until lawmakers pass the Save America Act voting measure that he has labeled a national emergency. In real life, this is a national emergency. And keep in mind that you can go look this up on your own time, that voter fraud is like 0.01%, right? And those who have been caught committing voter fraud, maybe voting twice or not being legally able to vote, have been Republicans. So how much of an emergency is it? It's an emergency when Elon is rigging voting ballots and you're redlining and gerrymandering, illegally gerrymandering states and drawing lines and pushing people out of their jurisdictions, Jasmine Crockett, Al Green, and the likes. That is fraud, and they're getting away with that. but we still fight. We don't stop fighting, and I'm glad that they're pushing back, and I hope that they'll continue to push back. But this decision stalls the legislation aimed at boosting home construction and easing costs. Even after it cleared both chambers by wide margins, Trump also dismissed the housing bill as a minor importance. So he doesn't think that there's a housing issue. He thinks it's a minor importance. This is what this motherfucker said. Yeah. Okay. He said, I said, I'm not signing it. I made billions of dollars with housing. I know housing better than anybody. Lower interest rates. That's what he said, lower interest rates. Trump told reporters in the Oval Office, this is what he said. He said, I don't want to hurt people that own houses either. So he's looking out for the homeowners, right? He said, these people, for the first time in their lives, have valuable houses. They become rich. I don't want to hurt them either. He said they have valuable houses. They become rich. So they become rich, and people who can't afford to live there, they become poor. We talked about all this in the beginning. I talked about all this, how the rich people stay rich and the poor people stay poor. And meanwhile, the poor people beefing with Mexicans, they beefing with immigrants, they beefing with gay people, they beefing with blacks, they beefing with Christians, they beefing with Jews, but not the rich people that are causing their demise. But that's what he said, y'all. That's what he said. Anyways, the housing reform bill, called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, aims to boost the supply of affordable homes by accelerating new construction nationwide with provisions designed to cut delays in the building process. This includes streamlining or expediting environmental reviews that can slow down housing projects. It also targets large institutional investors by limiting the number of single-family homes they can own. Because we know a lot of people, they allow people from other countries to come in and buy land. Where they do that at? It's not a lot of places you can go and just go buy land, rack up the prices because they got cash. These wealthy people, they got deep pockets. Versus people who have to go get loans. But he's saying just lower the interest rates. Anyway, it also, he said, more broadly, the legislation is meant to address a nationwide housing shortage, with an estimated in millions of units by increasing supply and easing pressure on home prices and rents, which have surged with high mortgage rates and inflation. So it's not just the interest rates. Houses cost more because they're driving up. And then even if you already have a house in a neighborhood and the prices are being driven up, people who have settled and retired can't afford to pay their taxes because their property value has gone up because these people are coming in and buying houses at a higher rate. That is a problem, okay? The bill advanced with overwhelming bipartisan support, passing the Senate by 85-5 vote and clearing the House 358-32, underscoring rare cross-party agreement on tackling housing affordability, even a deeply divided Congress. So just so you can remember, the Save America Act, okay, is short for the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, the Safeguard for the American Voter Eligibility Act. It is a Republican-backed elections bill that will require documentary proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote in federal elections and impose stricter voter ID requirements at the ballot box. Supporters say it would bolster election security, while critics argue it could make voting more difficult for eligible Americans lacking easy access to required documents. And y'all's president has made the measure a central legislative priority, repeatedly urging Congress to pass it and framing it as essential to the election integrity. The bill cleared the House. Again, we cleared the House earlier in the year, but it stalled in the Senate. Thank goodness. People are growing some balls, but I'm still not giving you credit because this is why we're here, and y'all don't be giving them credit because they see how awful this person is now, or they can't even control them. They part of the problem, and we're not forgiving them. Okay. They're not going to apologize because they don't feel sorry. So it has Democratic opposition and division. But anyway, shout out to Mayor Mondami. If you guys don't know, the mayor of New York, for freezing rent costs to multi-millions of New Yorkers. So this is currently what's happening when people get into office, when you elect people who tell you what they're going to do and they go in and do it. See how this is supposed to work? Because politics is a distribution of resources, right? So our tax dollars are supposed to be used to the benefit of those who contribute. And that's all of us, right? The majority of us, because they don't want millionaires to be able to, the wealthy to have to contribute, just to be able to create a labor force and underpay people and get rich off of expensive housing, and for us to be able to just chase our tail and never be at home with our families while they don't want us to stop having families. or these white teenage girls, um, so that they can just be rich. It's a weird thing to want to be that fucking rich. It's just weird to me. But anyways, Mayor Mondami freezing rent costs of multi-millions of New Yorkers. Um, on his first day, as soon as he got into office, he fixed potholes immediately. He gave people livable wages to go in and clean up trash immediately. He hasn't been there long. He's only been in office for 6 months, y'all. Okay. I'm sorry he can't run for president because he's not a U.S. citizen, but if he could, this is the kind of representation we need. And we can't give up because we don't have that. And we're not going to get 100% person because I know my Dami's probably not a perfect man, but he's good enough. Okay. Like Joe Madison would say, what do you want, an orgasm? Like you ain't supposed to like him. You're supposed to make sure he go in and do what he's supposed to do and do what he say he's going to do. And that's what he's been doing. So just 6 months into his term, the city's rent guidelines, the board voted 7-1 vote approved a rent freeze covering both 1 year and 2 year leases for people living in about 1 million rent stabilized apartments, which make up about 27% of the overall housing stock across New York City's 5 boroughs. The freeze takes effect October 1st and ends September 30th of 2027. And I imagine it's going to be extended or there's going to be some adjustments on rent, period. So if you guys don't know, Mondami also lives in a rent stabilized apartment in Queens with his wife before moving into the mayoral residence, the Gracie Mansion. Okay. So you have a person who understands what it's like to need some type of rent stabilization to be able to live and feed your family and just, be able to just to live. Okay. And that was just this year. So he framed the vote as a historic victory for the city's tenants. This is the relief. This is the relief that's working people across our city deserve, he was quoted saying. And I'm going to close out with the 4th of July, carrying you guys over for a few minutes because we got to get out of here. You can't get out of here without talking about the 4th of July, right? So I just want to just say, I talked about Juneteenth, just to get an understanding of the 4th of July for those. Are you guys celebrating the 4th of July, first of all? Anybody out there celebrating the 4th of July? Like, it's just been a normal thing for us our entire lives, right? We go out and get the outfits, we get the fireworks. But has anybody ever just had a conversation about what the 4th of July is or what it means? Have we had that conversation? So that's my question to you before we get out of here is do you have a different perspective knowing what you know now, or have you always known and it doesn't make a difference to you? You want to get the fireworks and you celebrating white people having their freedom while your people, in particular Black people, were still enslaved. Because that's what we're celebrating, basically 250 years, white people coming over, stealing the land from the Native Americans and importing labor. So that's what it was. Okay. There was an American Revolutionary War that was fought from 1775 to 1783. And it was a conflict, through which there were 13 colonies successfully broke free from a British rule and established the United States as a sovereign nation. Okay. This is what they're celebrating. Again, if you think about the time frame, 1865, 1863 was the Emancipation Proclamation, and in 1865-ish was when the last people reportedly, allegedly, were told that they were also free people. So tensions have been escalating prior to this, them having their freedom due to British taxation policies such as the Stamp Act, the Townsend's Act, and colonies' lack of representation in the parliament, okay? So this is what caused them to go. But in 1852, Frederick Douglass spoke before these people who were celebrating the 4th of July. And he said, what to the Negro is the 4th of July? It was a famous speech. And he said, what is the meaning of the 4th of July to the Negro? It was delivered July 5th, the day after the 4th of July, obviously, in 1852. He addressed an audience of abolitionists in Rochester, New York. He began by acknowledging the significance of the 4th of July as a celebration of American independence, but quickly shifted to express the deep sorrow felt by enslaved people on this day. Douglass stated, the 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. He emphasized that for the enslaved, the holiday was a reminder of the gross injustice of cruelty they face daily, making the celebration feel like a sham and a hollow mockery. Again, slavery lasts for over 240 years, from the 1600s up until 1865. And, they brought the cream of the crop here. They were very intentional about who they brought, and it's reflective on how they do sports now. Yeah, I said it. When we think about football and we think about those, to me, the traditions of the white people have not changed. It just looks different, right? They're still picking the cream of the crop to make their money for them to run the ball. They're gonna pick the cream of the crop. Yeah, so 1776, right? Yeah, 1776. The Atlantic slave trade was officially banned in 1808, though. Just so you guys know, again, 1865 was those who found out last. 1808, it was banned. Um, yeah, but you had a Turner Rebellion and others, Nat Turner and others who rebelled during the slavery. The stories we never hear because they don't want you to know that and they don't want you to get any ideas. But Nat Turner is a popular one in 1831. We remember that rebellion. Yeah. So that's the 4th of July. You guys celebrating? And if so, why? Because you're free now. Finally, they let you free. Now that they let you free, we can celebrate with them. Is that what it is? I'm just asking. When they freed when they freed the enslaved, of course, the slave owners protested and they did get reparations. They got, I think it was roughly $400. I don't know what the equivalency is to this day. I didn't look it up, but they got reparations for their losses, right? They had to be reimbursed. No different from what the Haitians went through when they defeated the French. They had to pay them for being free. Okay? They had to pay them for being free. I'd encourage you guys to also look up the Trail of Tears and the Indian Removal Act under the president at that time, who is y'all's current president's favorite president. He has a nice, beautiful, I'm sure expensive, painted portrait of him, if that's how you say it, of Andrew Jackson. And that was a wicked man. And if you look up the Indian Removal Act, maybe we'll talk about this at another time. It just makes me reflect on The Handmaid's Tale, which they didn't mention much in the series, but I understand the book explained, because there were a few Black people and different people of different cultures that were non-white in the Handmaid's Tale series. However, not a lot, but the book doesn't have any Black people in it. The book expresses that those people were removed. And so that's why I'm encouraging you to read about the Indian Removal Act, because that's kind of like what their intentions are. Okay. I had to get all that in, y'all. And I hope you found it fruitful and interesting. And I hope that send you down a rabbit hole to learn more about y'all's country, y'all history, and where we are today. Just, the past explains where we are now. And you'll be looking in a mirror kind of. Anyways, I'm going to close out and let me go ahead and thank you guys. You know how I do. I got to get my thank you in. Thank you for listening, watching, and chatting. I'll do that now. Get my applause in for y'all. And I'm going to close out with an Angelus Davis clip, who has something to say about people who fought for the future and what that means to us now, what that means to us now, and what the importance of fighting. Even if you don't live to see the fruits of your labor, this is what she had to say.
I think it is so important for us to try to extricate ourselves from the idea that the measure of value is one human life, and that if it is not achieved in our lifetimes, it is not important. If people who were enslaved held those ideas, they would not have struggled so much. They were struggling for us. They were struggling for the possibility of a new world. If we imagine the ways in which people 100 years from now, 200 years from now, will be thankful to us for doing the work that we are doing today, then that means that we will have played a part in the production of that future, and that we will be spiritually present in that future. That to me means that our primary goals are to create new arenas for struggle, to guarantee that it continues from one generation to the next. I think
She said it best. We have a lot to deal with, you guys. We have a lot to deal with as Black people, knowing that most of us carry the names of people who owned our ancestors, unfortunately. While people are celebrating their freedom, so much of our history is attached to slavery, from the atrocities of slavery, and we still carry that. Why do we still carry the names of people who owned us? We know that we were stripped of our original names, but why do we still carry those names? Why haven't we detached ourselves completely like Malcolm X did and the likes? Okay. And meanwhile, y'all president wants to remove anything associated with slavery. He has a monument up somewhere where George Washington is there, and it has information showing that, photos or and information showing that he had enslaved people. Actually, George Washington had the most enslaved people at his time because his wife also came from a wealthy family, and so he inherited their stock as well, is what they called it back then. Okay, there's so much. There's so much to talk about. There's so much to unpack. I know it's a lot, but it's important that we focus on what's really happening to us and what's really happening right now. It's all love and respect, you guys. Enjoy the time. Let me do my. I guess this is a TED talk. Peace. Till next week.